This video is sponsored by The Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth, which enables DidYouKnowGaming to donate $10,000 to video game history preservation. Did you know? For The Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth, Gandalf was originally planned to narrate the entire game. However, the team at Capital Games soon realized that it'd be strange to have Gandalf narrating the game and be a playable character, so they gave the role of narrator to the great half-elf Arundel instead, since he's sort of above it all. For this video, we got the chance to speak to a few devs at Capital Games about the development of Heroes of Middle-earth, and we unearthed a ton of interesting facts about how the game was made. And due to this video being sponsored, we'll also be donating $10,000 to help preserve video game history. We asked folks on YouTube how they feel if we use sponsored videos as a way to give back to the community, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. So, here we are. This time, the money will go to the UK's National Video Game Museum, and will be used to help preserve thousands of objects from video game history. Capital Games had dreamed of working on a Lord of the Rings title for years, and so when they had the opportunity to start a new project, they decided to take their shot. And to their delight, Middle-earth Enterprises, who hold the rights to the works of Tolkien, decided to go all in on the team's proposal. The basic vision for the game was an RPG, but one that aimed to recreate the feeling of playing with action figures as a kid, exploring stories that never actually happened in the source material. This is where the game's what-if scenarios came about, a series of missions all based on hypothetical scenarios. With Heroes of Middle-earth being an officially licensed Lord of the Rings production, we were curious about how the team decided what kinds of stories should and shouldn't be pursued. So we put this question to Heroes of Middle-earth's game director, Nicholas Reinhardt, who told us, "We've had some great discussions around the stories to pursue and not pursue. Much of our thinking around this is telling stories that very well could have happened if a different decision was made or action taken. There are potential heroes whose lives got cut short. What if they didn't? There are potential characters that could have been powerful forces of evil if they had fallen under the influence of the One Ring." The game accommodates these what-if scenarios by introducing a new ring of power to the Middle-earth universe that gives players the ability to see different possibilities. This allows for new scenarios, new interactions, and even new characters. But with the series being held in such high regard, the developers made sure that every new addition was tailored to best fit Tolkien's world. The game's director Nicholas Reinhardt has gone on record saying the team pored over Tolkien's notes and looked at how he derived the names of his characters and what their inspirations were, then used the same methodology when making their own new characters. On the subject of all new characters, producer Tim Lander told us, "Our Haradrim squad is made up of 5 all-new characters that we're really excited about. We had so much great lore to draw from with the Haradrim. These powerful warriors were manipulated by Sauron much like so many others like King Theoden and Rohan. Their combat prowess and collaboration make them some of the best warriors in Middle-earth, and we are so pleased with how these qualities were captured in both their gameplay and visual presentation." According to Nicholas Reinhardt, Heroes of Middle-earth started out like a turn-based RPG similar to Final Fantasy, but the game grew in complexity over time. And although its depth and scope grew, the team would realize that at least for some parts of the game, less was more. When discussing how the game had changed, design director Jay Ambrosini said, "Combat originally had 8 characters per side, which we initially thought would be more fun, but the feedback we were getting from some of our players, and our own play experience, was that the camera was so far pulled out that they felt disconnected from the characters. Having 8 characters resulted in other issues too, like all the battle icons being so small that they were difficult to read." Ambrosini told us that after a lot of consideration, they made 2 main changes. One was to cut the number of characters down to 6, and the second was to introduce the concept of a large creature slot. Allowing just a single large creature like a troll to be on the field meant the camera could be brought in even closer, and this also meant that large creatures felt special, which fell in line with how they're often treated in the source material. But this wasn't the only challenge the team faced. Balancing was a persistent concern, as the devs had to consider various aspects of the game as well as the source material. What would a balanced team look like? And would it make sense for these characters to be fighting alongside each other? How can the team as a whole be balanced while still staying true to each character? In Nicholas Reinhardt's own words, balancing is a difficult skill, and we are so fortunate to have such talented designers on the team. The abilities of our characters truly embody who they are. Take the Road to Rivendell squad for instance. The hobbits feel like hobbits hiding, assisting, and buffing each other. Then there's Strider leading from the front, being a strong figure that protects them from harm. Although the developers are huge fans of the live-action Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movie trilogies, The team opted early on to take inspiration solely from Tolkien's literary works and avoid using material from other interpretations. This can be seen with the game's inclusion of the mysterious character Tom Bombadil, who was notably cut from the Lord of the Rings movies for the sake of brevity and pacing. We asked Nicholas Reinhardt about the inclusion of Bombadil, who said, "You can find this fan favorite in Sam's campaign A Gardener's Journey, as we retell the book-exclusive story of the hobbits meeting our jovial friend Tom Bombadil and receiving his aid. Tom isn't a playable character yet, but maybe someday. When we've talked about Tom, we'd laugh and say he wouldn't have a health meter but an attention meter. Tom would never be defeated, but he might wander away." Focusing on the literature also impacted how the characters looked, with Capital Games poring over book descriptions to build up each character's appearance. The team also consulted with Middle-earth Enterprises to make sure each model was true to form, and build up the overall style of the game. The game's art style evolved over time, partly due to fan feedback. Early on in the game's soft launch, the team received feedback about several aspects of the game's presentation. The game's director Nicholas Reinhardt called the entire process an interesting challenge and thinks this regular and instant feedback is one of the benefits of live game development. These redesigns saw changes in geometry, textures, colors, and how they interacted with lighting, all to refine the game's look and line up more with fan expectations. These and other changes were pushed out during the game's March 2023 update, which according to Nicholas Reinhardt was an incredibly impactful moment in the game's development. That was a very special release as it was the first time players got to experience the completely redone new player experience. It was so fulfilling to see the feedback pouring in from players showing that they loved the changes as much as we did. The game seemed to have several changes over its production, so we asked if there were any big features that got cut or that they couldn't include for whatever reason. And the response was basically, no. Basically, due to Heroes of Middle-earth taking the service model where it's continually updated, the burden of a time restraint doesn't apply as much as games with a fixed deadline. Any worthwhile ideas the team had will most likely end up making their way into the game at some point. Jay Ambrosini told us, "What is great about a live services game is that those features are coming. We added raids at 2 months post-launch and are hard at work on several other features. The first is glyphs, a character personalization system that will modify or improve your character's combat stats and performance. This would be a system that gives players the ability to make characters even more powerful along with effects that'll customize and change the way they play in battle." They went on to say that another feature they've been wanting to add is multi-squad PvP, which is also planned to be put in the game at some point in the future, and test out souped-up teams with glyphs against other players. We also asked the team what it felt like to work on an official The Lord of the Rings project, and they said more than anything, they just want folks to know that they love the source material and feel incredibly honored. It's rare to be able to entertain folks with video games, and even rarer to work on something you have such a deep, abiding passion for. We're so humbled to be able to bring this game to the world and hope you enjoy it as much as we have making it. The game's next big update is the Mines of Moria, which features a huge fight against the Balrog. The Balrog has 3 different forms: neutral, fire, and shadow, each drastically changing the visuals and gameplay as players seek to survive this epic concluding chapter and begin to unlock the hero of the story, Gandalf the Grey. If you're interested in what you've seen and heard here today, you can check out The Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth right now on Android and iOS devices.